when you've got a kiddo who's just like screaming and basically declaring, here's what I'm not doing. The best way to engage in those moments before you get to any type of assessing or trying to solve it is just to use language that reflects the core 4 connector. I hear you. I believe you. I see this is a big problem. See how short those sentences are? It's just so powerful. All they want in that moment is to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel understood. And if you can collaborate with their feelings in that moment, you have a much higher likelihood of them opening the gates and saying, okay, I'm ready to talk about this with you.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. So I am thrilled to welcome back a previous guest we've had on here. I love partnering with parent coaches. And as soon as I saw that my friend was releasing a book, I was like, you have to come back. We have to talk about it. And I'm sure a lot of you may not even know her, or maybe you haven't been listening to the show long enough to have heard her episode on here. And so I'm excited to have you back, Cara. Cara Tyrrell is the owner of Core 4 Parenting, and she's incredible. Okay. Like if you have young kids, you need her in your life because she's all about early childhood. And I love learning from her. I love talking to her. She's just a great human being all around. And I'm so excited that we get to talk about how what we say to our kids deeply impacts who they become, how they think, what they believe about themselves. And I think as parents, we could use all the tools to know that we are helping support our kids with a strong, healthy foundation from the get-go. And a lot of us might not know how to, right? So, Cara, welcome back. For those who are new to you, please let them know where you live, how old your kids are, and what led you to become this expert in early childhood.
Oh, Michelle, thank you so much for having me back. It's always a bright, shiny light when I look at you. I really enjoy spending time with you. So, hey, everybody, I am Cara Tyrrell. I live in Southern Vermont. I was born and raised here and then, jet set it all over to do things like be educated and have jobs and things, but ended up coming back here to raise my kids who are 21 and 23. So I have made it. I'm on the other side, right? That space where parenting gets different. So that's where I am. But what led me to this work was the fact that I always heard myself talking to kids differently when I was little, when I was a nanny, when I was a preschool teacher. I would really consider the words before I said them and put them through a filter of, does this actually mean what I'm trying to say? And I would notice that a lot of people around me kind of just spoke on autopilot, and the kids didn't respond the same way. So I had this kind of aha moment that there was a lot of research to do. There was a lot of work to be done in homes, in schools, in childcare centers to see if what I was noticing was real. And then I took my linguistics degree and I started pulling language apart. And I said, oh my gosh, we're onto something here. How we talk to kids is how they talk to themselves. It's how they think about themselves. And it's how they believe that they're capable of learning for the rest of their life.
Just before we hit record, I had just shared with her that I've been having more moments where I notice like, wow, I just handled that a lot differently than I would have in the past, right? So, like, for reference, if you're new here, I've got a 16-year-old stepson, crazy. I also have a 9.5-year-old, and I have a 6-year-old. And the way I parent my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old now is not how I parented my 16-year-old when he was younger. And I feel awful, but again, like, compassion for myself, because I didn't know what I know now. And it's just so crazy how much more intentional I am with how I speak to them. I slow down first, and I already notice the difference with how
Yes.
they process stuff. So I'm so thrilled to dive into this.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about how we can support their early learning. I know you have a concept called the core four connectors. Can you share with us what that is?
Yes. So the book is all about language, but at the very beginning, just in chapter 1, I make sure that everybody understands that language is actually relational. And the number one job that you have as a parent, if you're an educator, if you're a caregiver of these little humans, is to build a quality and a healthy relationship with them. That's what unlocks their ability to hear you when you talk. Okay, so these core four connectors, they're going to sound very familiar to all of you out there. I want you to visualize somebody in your life that you just have this like bond. It's inextricable. You cannot break it. It is this human being that you know as soon as you go to them with anything, positive, negative, frustrating, overwhelming, they're going to trust you. They're going to hear you fully. They're going to believe you. They're going to hold space for you. They're going to listen completely. They're going to respect your experience, even if it's not something that they've had. Those are the bonds that connect us, right? Mutual trust, mutual respect, honesty that we can believe each other's words as real and true, and the ability to talk about all of those things. And it is a very unique relationship. When I run this exercise with adults in staff trainings, a handful of people say, I have someone like that in my life. It's kind of a unicorn relationship. And then I say this, Michelle, imagine building that relationship with your toddler so that you can navigate all those ages and all those stages, the tweens, the teens, the 20s. And they all go, oh, I would love that. Is that possible?
I love that. You're basically saying, like, become the safe person to them, become that person that's putting the time, the effort, the energy, the commitment to building emotional intimacy with them.
Yes. So I talk about the 3 intelligences, right? As parents, we hear all the time about IQ, cognitive intelligence. Okay. I'm just going to ask you to like put that out the door and lock the door for a little while. We're not worried about that right now. Then there is emotional intelligence, which is a self-led experience. That's a self-development process. Then there's relational intelligence, and that is the science of learning how to be safe and feel confident in conversing with other people. And this is one that often gets overlooked. And the core four connectors remind us to be kind of gut checking, asking ourselves these questions as we hear things come out of our mouth with our littles. Oh, is that actually something that I can be honest? Like, was that real? Can I follow through on that? Did I just set an unreasonable expectation? Oops, I guess I probably need to go back and say, uh-oh, what I meant to say was, and fix it.
Yeah, and that requires a lot of humility to check your pride, because a lot of previous generations, the way they parented, at least my experience of previous generations, is like, oh, came out of my mouth. Well, it is what it is. I'm the parent. The hierarchy is that I rule all and you don't challenge what I say. And it's very fear-based,
Yes.
essentially. And now we're talking about flipping that on its head and talking more about collaborative parenting.
That's exactly it. So There's four different designations of parenting when you go back into the science and you look at the grids. And a lot of people are talking right now about authoritative and, okay, I'm not interested in being that do as I say, not as I do parent, right? They want away from that. And a lot of people are talking about the permissive parenting space and how gentle parenting felt good, but it kind of led to this space where the child felt like they can do anything they want because they don't understand how to feel safe inside boundaries, even though they're searching for that. Which leads us to this collaborative. So essentially the difference, this is just to put this in your head and think about it. If you're out there going, wait, is this just another name? Like, is this just another label? Right. So what I want you to hear is the difference between conscious and collaborative. Because conscious parenting and conscious discipline are well known and anchored for generations now. And I love it. I do. But conscious means you as the parent are using I statements. I am someone who can take a breath right now. I am someone who can control my body. I am someone who can choose what to say next. Awesome. But your child gets a conscious experience happening, and they're allowed their conscious experience simultaneously. So when you meet them and say, we're a team, we're on the same team, we're having two different conscious experiences right now, but I am willing to collaborate with you to see if we can help each other come to a conclusion and a solution together, is when everything changes.
Yeah, and I feel like that just sets up the future years, like you said, for more collaboration. When the stakes get higher,
Oof, they do.
things get more real, right? Real world consequences versus like, oh, you spilled your cereal, then you gotta clean it up. If only it could stay that simple, right? Like as parents, we want nothing more than to just keep our kids safe, but part of that is preparing them for the real world.
And we need to practice in low stakes moments. And listen, I know I've lived it. And honestly, I keep a few toddlers around at all times. I borrow and play and make sure that I'm keeping my pulse on what's going on right now. Believe it or not, the toddler years are your lowest stakes moments. And I know it can be really hard to hear that because they also are the busiest. They feel the most overwhelming. They're the most emotionally charged. And you're like, wait a minute, are you telling me it gets worse? No, I'm telling you it gets different. If you have the opportunity to practice using intentional language and collaborative problem solving with a toddler around the big problem of you gave them a yellow cup instead of a blue one, you are actually practicing your skills while deeply connecting in that trusted relationship so that when it is middle school dance time and they want to stay out until 9 o'clock and you need them back at 8 o'clock, you can actually have a conversation around that is not emotionally charged because you've paved the path of my parent listens to my opinions and my ideas. They don't always agree with me. We both get to offer up a potential solution, and then we learn to compromise.
And that's incredible. I think that is goals right there. That's the kind of dynamic that I want with my kids. You know, my son's in third grade. He'll be in middle school in no time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that transition with my 16-year-old. It was like he became a completely different person when the hormones came in. I was like, I don't even know how to talk to you anymore. Like, it's not okay to ask about your life anymore.
Right.
You know, like, and so it required a shift in how we connected. And I think by building this foundation with them, it does create a little bit more ease in our anxiety levels. At least that's what I think, or I'm hoping that will happen. And I know that if we can just like distance ourselves from how things were done to us, which was very much like so much distance between the parent and the child. It was like, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to listen, and I'm going to rebel and then get in trouble. And the disconnect and the gap just keeps growing. Like, I am not close to my parents. It's
Mm,
very much like, I'll tell you what I think you should know about me, but on a relational level, we're not close. But that's not what I want with my kids.
right.
And there's that difficulty of not experiencing what you want
Mm.
to create, also.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the other thing that's really real, Michelle, is that when we have a deep desire to do something differently, we hold ourselves to almost an impossible
Mm-hmm.
standard. And in doing that, we're putting out a lot of energy. Like we're using up a lot of our resources in order to try to do it, quote unquote, right. And what happens is we end up misunderstanding the way our children respond back. Here's a great example. Because what they say, especially because I talk a lot about the language development capabilities and the expressive and receptive language of infants and toddlers, right? So they have limited language. They have limited words. That doesn't mean they have limited communication capabilities. And I talk about that a lot in the book with the talking triangle. But we misinterpret. So here's an example. I have this amazing mom that I work with, and she just sent me this today, actually. And she said, okay, I remember you said that the things that he does don't necessarily mean that he's trying to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this little boy, he's at the play group. He wants to engage with this kiddo, practicing interpersonal play. It was going okay for a minute, and then he fully disengaged. It got a little too uncomfortable. He didn't have a trust in that relationship yet, right? So the next thing he did was take this little boy's water bottle and hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we as adults immediately go to, well, that wasn't very nice, right? We go to a statement that becomes an identity building feeling in their body. Well, I'm not a nice kid, I guess. Why did you do that? Things that they can't tap into because do you know what his motivation actually was when we got down to it? He
Mm-hmm.
wanted this little boy to chase him. He actually wanted to
Oh.
re-engage with the kid.
He
He
was setting it up for that to happen.
he was using a strategy that he thought
That's clever.
would lead to play. So we are investigators, Michelle. We have to be these really on top of it observers who know who your kids are, because you do. Like you watch them grow up and you know what they're great at. You know what's tricky for them. You know the spaces that they need more support in. And then observe their behavior and observe their words and say, could what they're doing or saying actually mean something else, right? I don't want to go to school. I don't like school. Usually means there's something at school that's happening that doesn't feel good to me. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot take their words and we cannot take their actions at face value, or we end up degrading the relationship we're working so hard to build.
Oh my gosh, that what you just said right now, it was so applicable for this week. My daughter woke up one day and she was like not having it, screaming at the top of her lungs, and we're like, what's happening right now? She normally loves school, so we knew it wasn't that she hated school. And it came out that they were going to celebrate someone's birthday, and she didn't want to go because when it was her birthday, this person didn't sing or participate in the class photo for her.
Mm.
And so she was just like, no, she's hurt. And it's just so interesting what could be going on underneath, but not coming out. Like they're not expressing it because, I mean, hello, their brains, right?
Right. Right. And we have, as adults, we have decades
Mm-hmm.
of language stored in our brains. We have cause and effect figured out. We have a dictionary that's really nuanced and very deep that we can pull from to mean what we say. We have sentence structures that we know land really well with people. We know when sarcasm's appropriate. We know when it's not. They don't know any of this because your kids during early childhood, as much as you think they live in their heads, they don't really.
Mm-hmm.
They live in their hearts. They're big emotion filled bodies that are trying to effectively communicate with you with the limited resources they currently have. So, oh my gosh, so let me just, in that moment, right, when you've got a kiddo who's just like screaming and basically declaring, here's what I'm not doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? The best way to engage in those moments before you get to any type of assessing or like trying to solve it is just to use language that reflects the core four
Mm-hmm.
connectors. I hear you. I believe you. I see this is a big problem. If you see how short those sentences are,
Mm-hmm.
it's just so powerful. All they want in that moment is to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel understood. And if you can collaborate with their feelings in that moment, you have a much higher likelihood of them opening the gates and saying, okay, I'm ready to talk about this with you.
Yeah. And by the way, this expands to your marriage as well. Okay.
Yes.
Like this is what's called attunement. This is what builds emotional intimacy. We often get so stuck in our heads about, what did that mean about me? Or what did that mean about what you think about me? Or how much you care or don't care about me? And so much of this requires us to kind of just be present with what your partner is saying. Yes, what you feel and what you think and what you want still matters. But then that's where we need to live in the and. And I'm here to listen to what their perspective is and get curious, which is like
Yes.
all threaded
Yes.
throughout what you're saying, right? Just being curious about what's going on and not really caring about, does that make sense to me?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes our feelings don't make any sense to the people we care about, but it's more about how we show up for each other.
Yeah.
Not making them defend how they feel, right? I think that's a really big one that often creates a power struggle between parents and kids and partners, right?
Yes.
That's a huge one.
Absolutely. And, my whole career has been in service to tiny humans and now in service to the people who care for and love them. But not one person I work with, I don't hear from them saying, wait, does this work with my partner? Hold on. Can I use this with my boss? Wait, I actually tried this with a coworker yesterday and it worked. This is the
Mm-hmm.
science of human connection. It's the psychology of relationships. I put it in a package for you to set the stage from the earliest years so that you can just kind of grow with it. But relationships are always repairable and they're
Mm-hmm.
always buildable. So whoever it is you're thinking of right now, you can take all these strategies. You can buy a book that says intentional language for development for infants and toddlers, and you can read the second half, which is just 25 intentional language strategies, and you can apply them to your adult relationships and it will work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would love to talk about subconscious
Mm.
speech. You have been throwing this around, and I know parents out there are like, okay, well, now I feel like I have this pressure to get this right so I don't screw up my kids. I think all parents feel that way in some sense. Like, I don't want to screw up my kids. I want to do right by them. And you had mentioned before we started recording that some parents are new to learning about how what they say, even when their kids are pre-verbal,
Yeah.
about what they say and how it affects them. So can we talk more about subconscious speech
Sure.
and impact that it has on our kids and how we as parents can be more empowered to do things in a way that feels good to us and helps us get to that goal of having this really strong connection with our child, but also establish a strong foundation for them going forward with their other relationships.
That's exactly it, Michelle. So, first of all, subconscious speech is not the same as habitual speech patterns. So, we all speak a little differently. right? I don't know if you've had the experience before where maybe you've studied abroad or you've gone to college or you've done something where you're with a new group of people for an extended period of time. For me, all it took was 2 weeks on a Nova Scotia trip. And all of a sudden, my habitual speech patterns and the way that I sounded kind of shifted a little. Okay. That's typical. That's part of the process. Subconscious speech are ways of talking, particular vocabulary, phrases, and tone that are buried so deeply in your subconscious mind from your childhood.
Mm.
Nothing you can do can kind of scrub that at this point, right? You are being so intentional about being the architect of your child's childhood right now. Well, somebody was the architect of yours, or a bunch of somebodies, more likely. And so this is why we often hear in our moments of distress and overwhelm, oh my gosh, I just sounded like my mom. Wait, my dad used to say that all the time. Ooh, that tone. I remember that tone and I remember how it feels. The difference is you're aware,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are doing kind of a listening loop and catching it and going, oh, that was one of my subconscious speech patterns. And you also know that you get the opportunity to say, oops, that's not what I meant to say. Let me try that again. And it's really powerful stuff. I had this experience semi recently with my adult daughter, because let me tell you, doing this for 30 plus years doesn't mean that you are ever perfect at it. Okay. That's your permission slip. One kiddo is off doing her thing far, far away in Japan, like on a trajectory that nobody ever expected her to be. And so in our family, especially our little extended family, she gets a lot of verbal attention, even though she's not here, because everyone's just so amazed at what her decision was for her adult life. So the one who's local often gets not as much praise,
Yeah.
or like, look at you're following your own path. Like it just kind of gets swept under. So my local kiddo, they're both in college, came to me one day and said, um, I'm really having trouble with this semester. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm this, I'm that, this professor, that, my workload. And she was just trusting me, right? Just pouring out, knowing I'm her safe place. And I maybe just wasn't having the best day and didn't have a lot of resources. And my subconscious speech comparison pattern kicked in. And I said, well, you should chat with your sister. Oh my gosh, her schedule is way worse than that. Oh, Michelle, I wanted to hide under a rock for the rest of the day. And it was 24 hours later. And I went back to her and I said, I am so sorry. I have no idea why that popped out of my mouth. You know me. I don't compare. I believe in your path, your journey, your timeline to success, whatever that means for you. I just basically like fell on my knees and was like, please forgive me. And she said, Mom, I didn't give it a second thought,
Oh.
which speaks very deeply to the fact that we have a strong, connected relationship where I am allowed to make mistakes sometimes and it doesn't break us. Stephen Covey talks about it as emotional bank deposits.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you have enough of a surplus in your account, you can make mistakes and they are easily forgiven. And in this case, not even noticed.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like she had loads of evidence of who you are, and this was just out of character for you, and she gave you grace.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
love that.
look at it the other way around, though, because kids who have loads of evidence that it's not safe to bring stuff to
Mm-hmm.
their parents, they go elsewhere,
Yep.
right?
I mean, that was me.
Right. There's a negative balance in
Yes.
that emotional bank account. And so what I always say is toddlers and teenagers are essentially the same people.
They are so similar.
They are going through all of the same developmental processes. Just like you said earlier, the teenagers have the higher stakes. So if you set the groundwork in those little toddler years, then that's in place for you as they hit the higher stakes of the teenage space. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm just hoping. And my daughter's the youngest, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you really gotta we really gotta make sure we're there for her. And she knows that we're there for her
Yeah.
because, just growing up female is a whole nother ball game. Not that males don't have their own challenges, it's just very different knowing that what we experience and we don't want that for them, and our awareness of everything that's on the news. It's just like, oh gosh,
Oh, for
so
sure.
much. So much. Okay, so what percentage of meaning-based communication is verbal? Because you had mentioned, just because they can't respond to you like an adult naturally,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that they're not processing or extracting anything from the experience. So can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, yes, think about a 9-month-old, think about an 18-month-old, think about a 2.5-year-old with a speech delay. There are so many of those right at the moment. How do they communicate with you?
Mm.
Because they do. They're always in
Mm-hmm.
communication mode. They're using their bodies, whether that's they're throwing them on the ground, going limp and boneless, or they're jumping up and down, right, to show you how happy they are. They're communicating with their bodies. They're communicating with their faces. They're communicating with nonverbal language links. What percentage of meaning-based communication do you think is verbal? 7% of meaning-based communication is verbal. Albert Meribin put decades of work into this and found that 93% of communication is nonverbal. So in the book, I introduce what's called the talking triangle, and it stacks these 5 language links leading to the top. And of course, the top of the triangle is the smallest percentage, which is where we actually use words. And so, yes, it's important that we choose them wisely. I think we've really anchored in the last half hour of how important they are, that words create identities and build confidence or strip it, that words motivate kids to take action or make them not want to do anything. But we're communicating with them with our energy, the attunement piece, with our body language, with our facial expression, and with our tone. And those are the 4 indicators they pick up on first before their brain actually processes the words that they heard. So think of it like a filter, right? So if your energy is full crank, your body language is completely closed off. Your facial expression shows frustration or anger or irritation. And the minute you start to talk, your tone conveys that. They're now going to process the words differently than they would have otherwise. And they may even, especially for really sensitive kids or kids who've experienced trauma, they may even just not process the words at all. They just might block it out. And this is what people say, oh, my child has selective listening, right? Oh, my child never listens to me. They just don't hear me. Well, the audio messages are getting up there, but whether or not there is physical and emotional safety enough for them to process it the way you mean it is a completely different story. And that's why I said, when someone is losing it and you just look at them and say, I see you right now. Your body is out of control. This doesn't feel good to you. You immediately strip away all of that. And now they want to hear the next thing that you have to say to help them move through it.
Yeah, I mean, that just is in line with the whole idea of seek to understand before being understood.
Yes. Oh, there's Covey again.
Right? Like,
my daughter, super, super emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and my son, very, very sensitive. And once I started being more aware of my presence that I was entering into the interaction with, I had so much more success with helping them regulate themselves through co-regulation.
Yes.
But it's like, if I'm not available for that,
Right.
that's not going to work out very. I'm going to get even more intense reactions or be told to give them space or whatever. And it makes such a big difference just being aware of what we're bringing into the situation.
Yeah.
Because we're yet another ingredient, but what ingredient are we bringing into it? Are we bringing in calmness, kindness, compassion, understanding, or are we coming in full force? I'm ready to discipline you.
Well, and so there's two pieces here. There's two sides of everything, right? Adult led or adult initiated conversations, we have the ability to do a gut check, to do a body scan, and to get ourselves organized and stack up our talking triangle and kind of rehearse some of that language. It's when it is child initiated, and typically child initiated through some type of big behavior, some type of refusal, some type of thing that triggers us, where the larger challenge pops in, right? That's where resetting our nervous system and having our own conscious strategies for, I have just been triggered. They know when they say that they're going to get me. How about I choose to do what I need to do right now before I respond? And one of my favorite hacks for this, Michelle, because it is not easy. And I'm all about, like in the book, I'm all about these tiny little bite-sized pocket links, right? That you can just have in your virtual back pocket so that you know what to do when the moment strikes. So one of them for me, this isn't in the book, you all get a freebie, is I'll just say, wow, I need a drink of water. And they don't need to know what that means, but I know what it means. I need a drink of water is code for I'm not in control of my body right now. So the words that come out next are not going to be great. But then I actually go get a drink of water and I drink and then I hold it in my mouth for 4 seconds and then I swallow and breathe out for 4 seconds. And so what I've essentially done is two things. I pattern interrupted my subconscious speech patterns, right? I used a strategy to actually bring me back to center, to regulate myself, because that 10-second split is how we get there. And you cannot talk and hold water in your mouth at the same time. So you have given yourself this cool, but you've also modeled for your child what it looks like to choose a self-regulation activity because they know exactly how you were feeling. They got all of that from your nonverbal communication.
That's an interesting alternative to box breathing.
Yes.
Very cool. I love that. Normally when I'm activated, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just start breathing and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. Or I'll tell my kids, like, I'm having really big feelings right now. Just so they don't think that they're the only ones that are kind of like off the rails. Like, I can get like that too. I'm just a little quieter about it most times. I recently started this thing with my daughter where, like, she's still 6, so like silliness still works with her, right? Where she'll blow out my candles, and my candles are my hands, right? Because I'm really trying to teach her breathing. Like, bring it back to your body. Like, let's think about what's happening. And I made it funny. Now it's like, if I notice her breath is too shallow, I'll just like wave my finger as if it's a candle that's like the flame isn't quite going out because it's too weak of a blow. And now she's like, okay, for this one, I want to make sure that you make the candle made of titanium. So that means like she has to have a really strong blow. So once she gets to that point, I know, okay, she's back with me.
Right.
She's back online. She's back in control of herself, and she's more regulated, and we can get back to whatever we were working on. And it's not
Yes.
like, so it's been a really interesting development the past several weeks.
I love that. And I mean, you're at the point with her where she can be part of the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And she's clearly communicating what her body needs
Mm-hmm.
in each moment. With 0 to 3, I call them the invisible learning years for a very good reason. All of that is happening in your tiny people. Just because they can't talk doesn't mean they're not thinking. Right? Just because they can't add to the conversation doesn't mean they don't have a big idea. And so the trick is, does that strategy work with every kid? And so you've really just got to be paying attention. I mean, I had one that humor, tickles, and physical connection in that would just like put her back online 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one that would send her so far further down the rabbit hole that getting her back became almost impossible. And so this is where they say, you know, the day you wake up and realize you have 2 kids and actually have to put together 2 unique toolkits for parenting strategies, it's a bummer, but it's real. You've got to know who you're dealing with and what brings them back. I have this graphic in the book called the state-o-meter. Think of it like the speedometer
Mm-hmm.
in your car, right? And all the way to the left is that full meltdown, that survival mode, that cortisol, that I don't feel physically safe right now, so nothing else can happen. And then all the way to the right is when their executive functioning brain is online and they can communicate with you and meet you there, and eye contact and smiles, and you can do some teachable moments. And then in the middle is the limbic system, which is where all the emotional regulation or dysregulation happens. And so you are their gas pedal. The way that you interact with your nonverbal communication, the words that you choose, the nurture environment you set up for them has them moving constantly up and down this statometer, because we don't stay in one state of being all day long as adults. I mean, in your marriage work, I'm sure people are more aware of where they are on that, right? I now know after 26 years of marriage that if this is a big discussion and my husband throws me a specific face, the right answer is to say, let's not keep talking about this right now. Let me know when you're ready to talk about it again, because he requires way more processing time than I do. And if I keep going, I'm going to pop him all the way down to the bottom of that meter, and we are going to go into full meltdown, which, of course, in adult terms means a big old fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of working with a parenting coach is a surprise that it's like, hey, this is a personal development journey for the parents.
That's right. That's right.
Because, you know, we are only as aware of ourselves as our parents have helped us be aware of ourselves. And if you think back to most parents of previous generations, they have very limited self-awareness because they were just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
Like what we focus on now is so different. We now focus on relationships, the quality of it, not just, do we have food on the table? Can we pay for our mortgage?
Yes.
Like we have that. And are we connected as a family? And that's a lot.
I'm so glad you said that, because I really want people to also understand that from their tiny people's perspective, there's different types of language. There's environmental language that happens in your home. And that's what they use as their baseline for how the world works. Okay. So here's a quick example. My goddaughter is 2.5. And so we were in the car driving and I got really loud, like happy loud, excited loud, but I got really loud. And I heard from the back seat, Auntie Cara, that's not nice. And I was like, okay, antennae up. That's interesting because everything about my language communication was positive and fun in that moment. And so I asked her mom later where that speech pattern comes from. And she's like, oh, we say that to the dogs when they get really loud. So I didn't react, right? Because when kids say to us, that's not nice, and they use kind of a cranky tone and all that, we tend to meet them where they are and defend ourselves, and then like power struggle ensues. And I didn't react, and I'm so glad I didn't, because we would have gone down a path that didn't even exist. All she was trying to say to me is, you're being loud.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're sponges, truly.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a lot of work as parents, as adults in their lives, to kind of like figure out the puzzle pieces. Like, what did you connect that I'm not following?
Yeah.
And sometimes they can't explain it.
Yeah. And if you don't know, ask the people,
Yeah.
because that environmental knowledge isn't something I had, but now I do.
Yes. Okay. Before we wind down this conversation, because I could talk to you forever, you keep mentioning this triangle thing.
Yeah.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, I've actually told you all of it with all of my words, but it is on page 24. And I'll see if I can hold it up for you.
Okay, so it's like a hierarchy.
It's a hierarchy. That's right. Yeah, think about like the food pyramid, right? Except with this, each section of the hierarchy, the bottom one is the largest, right? And then it's slightly less and slightly less and slightly less, but they all stack together to create the meaning of that communication. And so the bottom layer is your energy, it's your affect. And then we stack onto our affect our body language. And we stack onto our body language our facial expressions. I call them non-manual because as a trained teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, sign language actually uses facial expression as grammar.
Oh.
So that is really like nailed down in me from my training back in my undergrad days, that facial expression conveys meaning, and it's very important that we choose it on purpose. So those first three language links of the triangle are all connection based. That's the relationship piece, right? Then the next two are communication. We layer on our tone. We're going to choose whether we're speaking softly, gently, if we're going to speak stop, right? Whatever they need from us in that moment. If we're going to whisper, if we are needing a little bit of a stronger, definitive tone, and then we choose our words. And my biggest tip, if you're brand new at this, is to practice in low stake moments and keep your sentences 6 words or less. That means that deciding what to say is not as challenging because you're basically just narrating. You're basically just reflecting back what you see. And if you want to have those back pocket, I have the top 3 ready to go because I know what my kid struggles with the most throughout these specific times of day, then that's what the second half of the book does, is it gives you all of those and you pick the ones that are currently matching your child's state of development and current needs.
I love that so much. And I don't know if we've mentioned this, but the book is actually called Talk to Them Early and Often for Infant and Toddler Caregivers. But again, this is not exclusively to those who have infants and toddlers. These skills can carry you through all of your relationships. Okay. So I am so thrilled. Congratulations on the release of your new book. I'm so excited for you. And listeners, please go get it. If you feel like your relationship with your kids or your future kids are things that you find to be super important to you and you want the skills, you want the tools that you haven't been given before, go check out this book. And of course, I'm always about supporting other small business owners. Please leave a review for her on Amazon or wherever you buy it, okay? So that it helps spread the word to other people to get the help that they also could benefit from. Cara, thank you so much for being a guest on the show again. I always take away something inspirational and empowering and like just deepen my tool set for me as a parent, but also me as a marriage coach. So I truly just appreciate you as a parenting coach and parenting expert. I'm grateful to have you in my life and to be able to learn from you. I'm definitely going to go get that book and check it out. For those who want to connect with you, where is the best place to find you?
Just go to caratyrrell.com. And everything is going to be there for you, whether you're in a stage where you need some direct support or you just want to take the course and do it on your own, right? It's just all right there for you, a little choose your own adventure style. So I would love that. And come listen to the podcast. If you want to get to know me better, that's the best place to do it.
And what is your podcast called?
Transforming the Toddler Years.
Awesome. Thank you again. Listeners, if you love what you heard, I don't know how you couldn't love what you heard because she's just a wealth of information. And she truly lives and breathes what she teaches, like as you can see. Please go connect with her. Let her know you found her from the show. And also help a friend out. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, share it with them. Better yet, tag us in your Instagram stories, put it out there with your circle of community. I'm sure there are tons of people out there who could use the support in helping create a healthy, strong, deep relationship with their loved ones. And if you love the show, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you listening. Please consider leaving a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That's what helps the show grow and helps more people like you get the help that they need. And thanks again, Cara. I'll catch you all back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.